Welcome, everyone. Really excited to have you here. I'm Dennis Kite. I'm one of the founders of Coaches for Good, along with Maisa Khalil. We have a really fantastic speaker lined up today, Linda McLoughlan. She's dialing in from Ireland. She is an MCC and also sits on the Global Board of Directors for ICF. So really glad that we have her with us today. We want this to be really interactive. And so if you've got questions that you want to ask Linda, just put them into the chat and then we can feed them over. And then what we can do as well is as we're going through Q&A, we'll have you actually say your question or speak your question so that everyone can get it that way. Some people are sitting on smaller laptops or on their phones, and so it's difficult to see the questions as they come through. So we'll have you actually ask those questions. And let's go ahead and get started. So I'll turn the time over to Maisa.
Thank you, Dennis. My name is Maisa Khalil. I'm a co-founder of Coaches for Good, and I'm so excited about this session. I've been waiting for it the whole summer. Most of you know Linda. She calls herself an accidental coach, yet her clients call her trustworthy, inspirational, and leading by example. She's an MCC coach. She's an award-winning coach. She's a mentor coach, and she is the founder of LeadershipWorks. I will leave it to Linda to talk about herself in her own words, and Linda, thank you. We are honored to have you with us tonight.
My pleasure. And thank you, Maisa, and thank you, Dennis, for the invitation, and to the rest of your group. And congratulations to Coaches for Good on the first anniversary, because I think these sort of networking and collaborative groups are really important for the growth of the coaching profession. So well done to you, because this is volunteer work. Many of us here in the room, and I recognize many, you know, we are professional coaches, we run businesses, we have jobs, and yet we give so much of ourselves. We like to volunteer. I think that's part of the DNA of being a coach. So thank you indeed. And thanks for the intro.
Thank you, Linda. Tell us, if you take us to the beginning of your coaching career, back to the moment where you were inspired to become a coach. What was it? What had inspired you? What was the moment that you made that decision that this is the path I want to take?
I wish I could say to you, Maisa, that there was a single moment where that thought popped in my head. But I think, like life, it was a slow burn, if I can put it like that. I first started coaching almost 20 years ago. And if I explain to you then, I was based in Ireland. I was working for the Institute of Public Administration, and I was leading flagship leadership development programs for very senior civil servants and public servants. So like people who are running the country, essentially running health services. And we began to kind of see, what should those leadership development programs look like? And we were introducing, which 20 years ago was new, 360-degree feedback, business-driven action learning, mentoring programs. And part of those was with the 360 psychometrics, that I would meet these leaders one-on-one and have 3 sessions with them. Now, I didn't know that that was called coaching back then. I just saw it as one-to-ones. But what I realized, and maybe this was the aha, that leaders, and particularly very senior people, have very few opportunities where they feel safe, where they're in a confidential relationship, and they can really raise up what is keeping them awake at night. Yeah. And so and funnily, I found I was quite a natural. Now, I had no specific training before I started that. I had been licensed in the psychometrics and how to give the feedback, but we moved beyond giving feedback into helping them solve these thorny issues on policy, on change, on transformation in public services. So that's how I became this accidental coach. And I continued doing that for maybe 4 years. And then I suddenly heard about coach training. And that was the moment I did my training. And then after the first day, a 20-day training program, first day I was hooked. I felt I'd met my tribe. I felt I had discovered something that I could work with. And I've been at it ever since. And I would say, like many of us in the room, when you start out as a coach, very few people do coaching exclusively. And we know that from the ICF surveys into our profession, you know, that quite a high percentage of people actually blend it with another business. So many times you're doing coaching with a bit of training, coaching with a bit of facilitation, coaching with a bit of consulting. And I did all those for about 10 years. And I guess as I've become more established, and particularly since I moved to the Gulf and to the UAE in 2012, I really now exclusively do coaching. So I coach executives, I coach executive teams right around the world, and Zoom is even bringing me more reach with that. I train other people to be coaches, and I mentor other people to be coaches. So I'm doing all things coaching. I've even translated a lot of my work into Arabic. I've paid to have that done, and I hire Arabic speaking coaches to deliver some of that work. So it's been a long answer to a short question. It's been an evolution. So an accidental thing, finding the passion, doing the training, mixing it initially in my business, and now that singular focus. But it didn't happen overnight. It took about 20 years. And remember, ICF itself, the leading body representing coaches, was 26 years old this year. So we're still a young profession.
Exactly. And I love everything you're saying. One word, you said discover. What did you discover about yourself during this journey?
Yeah. I think when I started, I realized I'm very intuitive, that I kind of get people, even within the first 10 minutes of meeting someone. I kind of understand, and I can't explain how that happens. I understand what they're trying to tell me. I understand how they're feeling, and I understand sometimes what they can't express themselves. So in that way, coaching really played to that innate strength I had. And I think then, I also discovered that I'm very responsive. So whether I'm coaching one-on-one or with a team, I love to dance in the moment. I think I hate scripts. I hate anything that's formulaic in life. Ask my kids when I'm in the kitchen. My recipes don't always turn out because I'm a dance in the moment, every aspect of my life. But coaching invites us to do that. So if you're someone who loves to operate with no rules, accept your ethics, accept your core competencies and this broad framework, coaching is for you. Now, what did I also know about myself? I think coaching has shown me and brought me into presence. I don't think for the first half of my life that I was a very present person, because I tend to move fast, think fast. I love to multitask. And what I found was so healing and healthy for me when I took up coaching is that it somehow switches something in my brain. As soon as I start coaching on any given day, I'm in the moment. And I hardly ever take notes, and partly because data protection is a nightmare in Europe. So, but I find that if I was to coach you, Maisa, for instance, I don't take notes. And if I didn't meet you for 3 to 6 months, as soon as I would meet you, it all comes flooding back. And I think that's to do with presence. And yet I'm someone now who can't find their keys 3 times a day. Do you know what I mean? When I'm in other parts of my life, I'm not that present. And this, I think, was one of the things that drew me into coaching and kept me there, was that it has made me far more mindful and far more reflective than my non-coaching self.
So it's being present in the moment and the coach presence itself and intuition. What are the qualities you think are very important to make a great coach, in your opinion?
There's so many things I could say here. And I think any of you, can I just ask, are most people here trained coaches or been part of the ICF, familiar with the ICF core competencies? Well,
Yes.
as you know, we had a new core competency framework delivered early 2020, and there was a new competency in that called coaching mindset. Number 2. Now, for me, coaching mindset is really the descriptor for that great coach, because that asks you, first of all, to be curious. So when we're curious, we're non-judging. We're open. The second thing it asks us is to be reflective, to get involved in reflective practice. So understanding that we're always evolving as human beings and making time to learn and continuously learn. The other thing that coaching mindset asks us is to be cross-cultural, to understand context and culture and how that impacts our clients. So therefore, not to make assumptions or not to kind of project my experience of life and my choices onto the other clients that we have. So I think anyone who embraces competency number 2, coaching mindset, is on their way to success. And maybe the last thing I'd throw into that, Maisa, if I can throw one more thing in,
Yes.
I think ethical. I am so hot on ethics. I do think without ethics, this profession will be doomed, because we are very much placed in confidential settings. We are trusted so much by the clients. They are vulnerable with us. We are partners with them. And I think really upholding the code of ethics for ICF is essential. So that would be my definition of what it makes to be a great coach.
Great. Do we have any questions in the chat, Dennis? Anyone has any question?
No questions coming through yet.
Okay.
Well,
Great.
maybe Dennis, can we ask what other people think would make a great coach? I'd be interested to know what others think, what they might put on their list.
Yeah. Would anyone like to volunteer, or do you want Linda to call you out? Okay, I guess, Linda, you can call them out.
Don't put me in that position, Dennis.
Okay, I'll take over the position. I see that John has unmuted himself, so John, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a new one, Linda. It's like that curiosity part for me is what coaching is all about, and it's the fact of you know, and sometimes trying to put yourself in the shoes of the person you're dealing with, and it's that part of actually avoiding assumptions, because it is all too often. I come from a technology background, and part of my problem has always been I go into problem solving mode, which is one of the biggest challenges I faced when I took on the role as a coach, because it is it's way too easy to go along and sometimes share your opinion when it's the last thing you should be doing when it comes to coaching engagement. So stopping and pausing and listening, I think are definitely the ways to success.
I think that was probably one of the biggest challenges that I faced when I moved from a corporate setting into coaching, because in a corporate setting, I was paid to solve problems. And so if I didn't solve a problem, that I wasn't earning my money or I wasn't earning my keep. And then when you move into coaching, you try to get your client to solve the problem. You can't solve the problem for them. I remember struggling with that, especially during the training program that I was going through. We had a lot of incredible opportunity to experiment with our coaching styles and things. And that was one of the big things that I had to really learn, was to just step back and say, okay, well, what are some of the different options? What's something that you've never tried before? What's keeping you from trying it?
Yeah. There's always challenges at the beginning. Yeah. And some of them are self-management as well. So not to judge or not to project your own experience into the client's experience. What were yours, Linda? At the very beginning.
I think the biggest shift for me was when I moved over to the United Arab Emirates in 2012. Prior to that, I had always worked as a coach, maybe in Ireland. I had a huge practice in Ireland, and I had some European clients. But I think when I came to the UAE, and it's so diverse, my first job when I came over to the UAE was at the American University of Sharjah, and I was kind of director of placement and careers there. So I was meeting on a daily basis with undergraduates and postgraduates from like 100 different countries, with 100 different hopes, 100 different ideas of what a career would be, 100 different kind of structures around their families. And it was so enlightening to me. I think those young people made me a better coach, because I remember, if I can share one specific instance, one girl I had, and she was a fabulous student, and she was an accounting major. She wanted to get into the Big Four on graduation, and voila, she got her place, and we were thrilled. And about 2 days later, she came in and she was in tears in the office, and she said to me, "I can't take the job." And why? I had to go, I didn't say why, because we're not allowed to say why. Oh, tell me more. I was curious. But it transpired, her family realized that during audit season, she would not be at home until maybe 2-3 a.m. in the morning. And, in their view, they didn't think that was right for their girl. And that was really my biggest aha moment, where I had to say to her, well, what is really important to you here today? What is important to you about this decision? And her thing that was most important was to honor her parents. So in that moment, that was huge for me. And I always remember that, because, I'm a mother. I have 3 grown-up children, and my approach with them would have been entirely different. But it wasn't about me or my kids or kids in another situation. So it's just, I think all of us as coaches have had those moments where we realize it's what are the values, what are the belief systems, and what choice that client makes for themselves.
I've got a question that's come through from Lindsay. Lindsay Kemp, do you want to ask the question, or would you like me to read it?
Sure. Thank you, Dennis. I can ask the question. Thank you, Linda. Always lovely to hear from you. You suggested earlier on that you had an innate competency of being intuitive, which is marvelous. Can you answer the question, if it's not innate, how on earth does one gain that fabulous competency? Thank you.
Well, I think, as we train and we go through our careers, it's really about leveraging the 8 core competencies that the ICF has set out. And they're very specific. They set out behaviors that we should exhibit as coaches. And the one there that really incorporates intuition is coaching presence. And I think how we all have intuition. It's just perhaps that we're not always listening to it. And I think through our development as coaches, that we learn to slow down, go with the breath, connect with the head, the heart, and the gut, that we consciously do that through our daily practice, through the work we do with clients. And it's just like a muscle, because we know we have the three brains, but particularly those of us educated in the West, we have spent too much time above the neck. But maybe I think everybody will learn it. And I have seen that develop with people I've mentored, especially people who want to go to MCC. MCC is hugely intuitive, and it's hugely about presence. And I have seen people really get into that. So my short answer is yes, it's there, it's in the competencies, and we can learn it if we choose to.
Thank you.
Any more questions, Dennis?
Nope.
Anyone else would like to share? Probably there any challenges they had before, during, now?
I think we all have challenges as coaches.
Yes, and actually, I'm curious to know, are there any challenges now, Linda, after all these years? Do you still have any challenges now that you are experienced coach, MCC?
Yeah, I would say my ongoing challenge is to achieve balance and better boundaries in my life. I think I've developed a lot of self-awareness in my journey as a coach, you know, and I know those of you who know transactional analysis, my drivers are hurry up and try harder, which means that I'm always looking for the next mountain to climb. As soon as I get on top of a mountain, my instinctive thing is there another mountain there? Do I ever sit down on top of that mountain and pat myself on the back and you know, celebrate and just drink in the view? I'm learning to do it more, but my instinct, which I have to restrain, is to move forward. And I think I work with that every day. You know, those of you who do the Enneagram, which is an ancient typology of personality types, I'm a number 3 there, which is an achiever, which again is kind of, what can I do next? I've done that, give it to me, you know, I'm ready up. And I don't know if any of you have done the positive intelligence training with Shirzad. I did put it out into my own network. He was offering and still is offering free training in positive intelligence, which looks at our saboteurs. And one of my saboteurs is, again, hyperachiever. So this is kind of my life challenge. It's not just a challenge as me as a coach. I think as a coach, I've learned to manage it better, but I need to be constantly aware. I need to be constantly alert to not burn myself out, not to say yes to too many things, not to take on too many things. So that is kind of my challenge always, is to have balance. I'd love to know what other coaches find is their particular challenge. If anyone's willing to share.
Maybe we need to actually ask people to share.
Yeah. I know Maria there, she's someone who's very open.
Yeah, with my challenges, I don't want to accept projects and I don't want to provide services with cultures of people that they do not match with me. And this is very clear because I will not enjoy it. And I feel that I am at the age that I want to feel and feel happy, and I need to have the passion to provide things to the people that they will appreciate, it will have an impact, and not because they pay me. That's one thing about the challenges. At the beginning of my career, the challenges was, when you are wearing different hats, I mean, you're a consultant, trainer, and mentor, and coach. It's so difficult to be an active listener, and it's just listen, not to give advice, nothing, and go through all the ICF competencies and not to jump in and tell him, okay, now you have to do that. That was the most challenging thing at the beginning of my career, but as a coach. But now it's more about enjoying, it's more about the moments. That's the most thing. Linda, I wanted to ask you, you are an MCC, you are definitely a high driver person. What is your vision now?
What is my vision? I think I'm at a moment now, Maria, where for me, it's about leaving a legacy. I won't say I am an older coach, but I'm a mature coach. So for me, it's about legacy. And I really do want to give back to the profession, which is one of the reasons that I put myself forward for the ICF Global Board. And I do give a significant amount of my time pro bono, maybe 30% of my working week, at least with them. I also really want to encourage people to professionalize themselves and come into the profession. I want to see the profession expand, and I want it to be as ethical and professional as possible. And I particularly want to attract younger coaches in. What we know for now is that most coaches are between 42 and 55. That is, believe it or believe it not, an aging profile for a profession. So one of the things I'm really envisioning now is how do we get the younger people in to grow and develop and change the profession, which is healthy evolution. Thanks for that.
Yeah, sorry, I have a question actually. Now that you talked about younger generation, do you think personal experience in life is important to become a coach? Like if someone in their 20s, can they be a coach if they don't have a career or a personal experience in life?
Yeah, I think this is a great question, Mayasa. And if you asked me that 5 years ago, I'd have given you a different answer. If you asked me 5 years ago, I would have said, yes, probably ideally over 30, has career experience, has post-university experience, has life experience. I probably am changing my mind on that. And when we look at Generation Z, which are, the early 20-somethings now, and I am following some of these younger coaches on Instagram, for instance, and TikTok, because they have brilliant social media presence. And what they are selling is authenticity, maybe more than experience. So they want to believe, or they believe, for instance, I've seen one coach who has had very bad acne and very bad body image issues. And she is coaching other people who have similar struggles in her age group. And her selling point is, I'm with you, I'm going through this, or I've just come through this very recently myself, and I'm completely authentic in how I let you know how it felt to me. And so my view is perhaps that we need to ensure that people are trained. I do like the idea that people would have a minimum of 60 hours of professional approved training. But I think that these younger people, they've been socialized different. They've been raised differently to previous generations. And I believe they're ready. And I think if we don't embrace them, they'll find another outlet.
Of course.
I'd be interested in what other people have to say. As I say, I've probably flipped my own thinking on that.
I'm just, because I always try to differentiate an influencer, a motivational speaker, and an actual coach, because on the social media, as you mentioned, there are a lot of people that they post quotes and talks and so, but are they trained? So training is important. This is what you are saying, that it's not enough to have a passion, to be passionate about certain topic or certain niche. They need the training.
Yes, and maybe this is a wider conversation, leaders in the industry are having and saying, do we need to rethink some of that training? Do we need to make it more engaging? Do we need to make it more bite-sized? Do we need to make it more blended? And already we've seen that ICF coach training, for instance, have brought out a new rule where 50% of training programs now can be asynchronous, which means self-directed offline learning. Huge. They had made that rule for the pandemic, but they've decided now to institutionalize it. So I think I absolutely believe in training and education. I'm a learning and development background. That's where I've come from. But I think maybe we need to reimagine that too.
I think with the push that a lot of corporates are going through, or corporations are going right now, of implementing a coaching mindset amongst the leadership team and the managerial team starts to influence that, where people, they don't necessarily become coaches, but they become like coaches, if that makes sense. And they're practicing a lot of the same techniques that we've learned and we've been certified in. They're teaching them, or they're practicing them as they're leading their teams and inspiring their teams to move forward. And so I see a blending come over like that as well. I think as well, you had mentioned earlier that the ICF is 26 years old. And so Generation Z is the first generation that's been born when coaching was actually recognized as a profession. And I think that that's part of that evolution is going to happen even more so. If I look at my daughter, for example, I think she's going to make a fantastic coach one day, because she has the emotional intelligence there already. She can read a room, and she can be present, and she's inquisitive and things. But it's just a matter then of giving them the experience and the confidence that they need in order to then take that to the next level. But I think you can be a coach, or you can be like a coach without having to be a coach, if that makes sense.
They're probably two of the big trends that we will see, Dennis. One is what we're calling the democratization of coaching, which means that coaching is not for an elite, but the skills can be provided to managers, leaders, and leaders in the community and in corporations to use. And they don't identify as coaching professionals, but they're using coaching skills widely. And I think we want to see that happen, because we know it's such a powerful tool. We know the difference that it can make in people's lives and in communities and in corporations. So why not share that? And I think Coaches for Good that's part of what you're about. But the other big thing, and when we talk about younger coaches, and remember, every profession has to renew itself, and there will be a point where we hand over the baton. But artificial intelligence and the emergence of coaching platforms, which is sort of the gentle end of AI, if you like, they're mainstream now. So what we're seeing is a lot of tech solutions for coaching, tech solutions that support how we distribute coaching, maybe how we make it affordable to the masses. Because maybe one scenario I would put out there is that in the future, in corporations that the professional coaches in this room, we will always have a job coaching the senior people, the identified talent, the movers and shakers, but that there may be a blended version of this available to the lower echelons, if you like, through AI. And, you know, I'm mindful of my own son. My son is an animator and a computer games designer, and he works for a mental health multinational, and they are blending cognitive behavioral therapy with some AI. So the person will have a therapist, but sorry, there's a bit of feedback. I don't know, maybe we need to mute ourselves if we're not speaking. That, you know, what was I saying there? Yes. So what he's doing is, so you will have a therapist, but that there will be these sort of automated prompts to do your breathing technique, to become present, to do whatever you need to do. So if it's happening in therapy and therapeutic settings, I think it probably will happen in coaching circles. And I mean, the question is, and ICF are looking into this, who will regulate and what standards will there be for these AI platforms that supplement? They won't do our job because the human being, the high touch piece can't ever be replicated. But, you know, we're going to see evolution, and it'll be sooner rather than later. When you see how the Zoom online thing has become mainstream in less than 18 months.
Actually, if you don't mind me coming in here, one of the things that I was involved in for over the last couple of years was a program called Two Roads Leadership. And in that, they actually had senior executives and also Gen Z in the same group. And it was a very interesting interaction because of the fact that there was the enthusiasm from the youth, but missing the domain expertise or the expertise that was actually out there. But as part of that program, they included coaching, one-to-one coaching actually with each of the participants. And one of the things that I found very interesting within that is that in some cases actually the senior people, but most of the young people didn't recognize what coaching was or is, right? And it was only actually going through the experience that they come along and said, oh, I never thought this sort of thing actually happened. I mean, this is something that they actually could relate to very, very easily and quickly. And some of them actually ended up moving over onto the coaching program as part of it. But it is that part again of like coaching. I won't say we can take it for granted. Like we know what coaching is about. There's an awful lot of people out there that don't understand what coaching is. And it is that part of you have to see it and feel it rather than be told what it is. And then all of a sudden it takes on a whole new meaning. So I think it's that part of making coaching more visible, especially with the younger groups. And I think that's where, like, I know there's a university in Limerick, Linda, you know of it. They've come along and actually they've included coaching as part of the support services they provide to the students there. Mm-hmm. And again, it's that scenario of walking the walk rather than just saying like, you know, here's an online connection to these types of services.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think coaching is a modality that is almost second nature to the younger generation. You know, they mightn't call it coaching, but they're used to dialoguing. They're used to being authentic, vulnerable, expressing their feelings. And I think it is a management style that has to be adopted by organizations in the future, because what we're seeing, particularly in America now, is what they're calling the turnover tsunami. Since the pandemic, it's hard to believe because I think the Middle East and maybe Ireland to an extent, we haven't seen huge hiring activity just yet. But in America, there is such a dearth of talent and qualified people for jobs that the turnover is enormous. And therefore, what companies are having to do, of course, is look wider for talent. So virtual working is helping them with that talent pool, but also they're needing to fast track in the younger people and give them more responsibility. And there is a battle for young talent now. And I think, again, this is pointing to the role of coaches and coaching in organizations.
Do you mind me asking, what's your opinion on some organizations using coaching more as a punishment than as a reward? And I mean, the reward being, we see you as a potential leader and we know the coaching will actually help you achieve it. Whereas all too often what people hear is, you have a problem, you need to get a coach.
Yeah, I had hoped really we'd moved on from that, because I think initially when I came in as this accidental coach, there was that perception that it was corrective coaching. So you went to a coach, therefore you had a performance issue. My feeling now, and the work I'm doing in the last good few years, is it's more about development. We're not, you know, my coaching teacher, Colin Brett, he used to say coaching is about development, not deficit. And that always stood in my head. So remember, as ICF coaches, trained coaches, we see that the person is whole. That's why we don't have to give them advice, because they're whole people, they're healthy people. They just need support to find the direction. So I personally, and maybe going back to a point Maria made earlier, if I was invited to do that punishment coaching, as they're calling it, that wouldn't be a client for me. They'd have to look for another coach. I'm sorry. It just wouldn't fit with me and my values and how I see coaching in this world.
I think the thing as well is, whenever conversations like that come up, I always ask, why would you spend this amount of money? And it's not a small amount. Why would you spend it on your poorest performer when you can spend it on your top performers and make them even better?
Yeah.
So,
and I think that it's now seen as a perk. Yeah. You know, it's a badge of honor now when you're selected. I'm currently part of a team coaching a large hospital in Abu Dhabi for a very exciting new project. You know, so we are coaching the top echelons within that hospital, but they went through a selection process, and therefore the people that really are in the program, they know they're the ones that have been earmarked for the future of this new legacy hospital, you know. So yeah, I think it's shifting, but it's ongoing work, John. Like, we have to get the message out there all of the time, what coaching is. What is coaching and how can it benefit you? And the biggest market for coaches is within corporations and organizations. That is where we need to develop the market, because these people will pay us. They will pay us at sustainable rates, and they'll get the value from us.
Just to counteract that one, because I was assigned a voluntold client. She was basically told by her boss that you're going to be meeting someone, and it became very clear as part of the conversation that it wasn't her idea there. And I mean, what we did was we basically turned the conversation from not what the CEO was looking to achieve, but what would the client most benefit from with regard to the interaction. And thankfully she quickly realized that this is a development opportunity, a positive development opportunity that she could go along and work on, and we turned it into that. But it was, like I said, I don't believe that the issues are always with the client. It's that next level up. You know. So.
And good on you that you were able to turn it around. But if we can't, I think we always know we've that choice.
Yeah.
And I think, again, a huge thing when we go back to our skills as coaches is designing the agreement. Remember, there is a whole competency that asks us, how do we set up the coaching engagement for success? So again, maybe a lesson I've learned over the 20 years. In the beginning, when I got the phone call, we need a coach, you know, I nearly was in the car driving there. You know, I was so excited to have the opportunity. Now it's very considered, and I take a lot of time to be sure, why are they ringing me? Why do they think they need a coach? What will be the parameters? What are the expected outcomes? What is the confidentiality around that? What topics are on the table? Are there topics off the table? And it's very interesting in that conversation. You assess the client's readiness to have you as their coach. There, again, it comes back to that alignment of values. And sometimes with some clients, I don't know how others feel, you realize they're well-meaning, but they're not ready. Maybe there's something you need to do with them. Maybe it could even be some like HR consulting that creates maybe a talent management framework or a performance framework or something that where the coaching can fit and live. So sometimes they're very ready and they know what they're buying from you. A lot of times they don't. And I think that's where we have to kind of coach them into coaching, if you know what I mean. I often think senior coaches in organizations are coaching the HR. We don't always say we're doing it, but helping them know what they want, find out what they want.
Linda, I've got a question for you. For coaches who are just finishing their certification and are getting into the profession now, what advice would you give them on finding clients and setting up their business? What's a realistic time frame they should look at and really stick to or stick with in order to see their business kind of survive and start to thrive?
This is a great question, and thanks for putting that on the table. Because I think when we say what is a great coach is someone who understands the competencies, who abides by the ethics. What is a sustainable coach? A sustainable coach is someone who understands it is a profession and it is a business. And in my experience, a lot of people are drawn into the profession because they love to help, they love to give back, they're looking for meaning. So they have really high ideals. But the piece that maybe they might be missing is that they have to want to make a deal. You have to have a little bit of business acumen. And again, we can learn it. And, you know, ICF and other providers provide great business development training. And I would suggest in tandem with your credentialing and coach training that's specific to coaching, you need this business development. Mm-hmm. And you need to dig deep into your own heart and say, before you set up as a coach, am I prepared to do the donkey work around business development? Am I prepared to network? Am I prepared to meet people for cups of coffee? Am I prepared to network? And am I prepared to, you know, learn how to write proposals, learn how to do pitches to clients that satisfy what they're looking for and what they need? And maybe I've been out on my own. I had my first business in 2006. And so I think I am a sustainable coach. That how you cost things is very important. You've got to value what you're offering to the client. You've got to, in this part of the world, in Middle East, there's a lot of people wanting discounts. So you need to really decide in advance what is a fair price and stick to your guns. I think the place of pro bono and giving free chemistry sessions, I think most of us as coaches will decide I will give 10, 20% of my time, whatever is reasonable, free. Again, one of the things I find with newer people coming into the profession is that they're saying yes to every pro bono opportunity. And those pro bono opportunities aren't always giving them the learning and the connections that they need. So I would say, this is now being the sustainable business coach. I would say be very strategic.
Okay.
I also believe you have to have a niche to begin with. You can, as we know, once you're a trained coach, you can do, I've done it myself. I've been a career coach, an executive coach, a team coach, a business coach, you know, I've dabbled here and there. But if I was to say and put myself on my website, I present myself as a corporate executive coach. That is what I am mainly. And I think we all have to find what it is we're doing, because if we say I can do everything, nobody know what to do. So why do you need a niche? And even as I say, I'm a corporate executive coach, have I a niche within that? Yes, public services. Why? Because I have a huge network in public service. Public service always has very good learning and development budgets. The other thing about it is very aligned with my own values as a person. So that's my niche. But say, for instance, some of you may have worked in banking, you may have worked in hospitality. When you're doing your business development, zone in with the people you know first. It doesn't mean you can't expand into other industries, and you will, but know who kind of your anchor kind of customer is. Try and visualize who would believe in me, where would I be aligned, where can I make a contribution, where can I get myself out to, and start there. There's a lot more I could say on business development, but I think that for every hour you spend coaching, you probably need to spend an hour developing your business.
At least.
At least. And again, I think some coaches can feel discouraged. And I would think a realistic time frame is probably 3 years. And I think, again, for many people, once you finish your training, remember, credentialing will help. In the corporate sector, at least, having a credential will give you more credibility. So you have to allow yourself time to get that. Does it hugely matter if you're ACC, PCC, or MCC? I'm not sure that it does. We don't have any research to say it does, but what does matter is credibility and years of experience with a credential. Mm. So I think there's a little bit of patience, but there's a little bit of having that thirst, that go-gettingness, whatever you would call that. I'd love whoever asked that question, come back to me. I may not have answered your specific query.
It was my question and you answered it. I'm thinking of the community as a whole, that we have a lot of the coaches that are members of the community are new. And that's one of the big challenges that they have. And I thought that your answer was fantastic. So very comprehensive, realistic, and actually something that people can work towards as well and use as a benchmark. So thank you very much for that.
No, thank you. Great tips. I think, it's not the only coaching. We need to have different skills. Like when I started, I was an introvert. Like just to get on a call like this, and Dennis knows, it was a big deal for me. Like I didn't want to do it. I don't feel very comfortable with doing it. But I had to stretch myself beyond my comfort zone. I'm a shy person, but if I wanted to get clients, I had to go out and network, as you said. And this is one of the things that I really struggled with at the beginning, because I was in corporate 9 to 5. I'm sitting behind the desk. Whoever needs me will come to me. And now I'm a lot better. But yes, it's very important to know that we need to build muscles and skills in different areas. And you mentioned also writing proposals. That's something I had to also learn. Thank you. Great, powerful tips. Thank you.
If I can just add one thing to the proposals, myself.
Please.
you know, when we meet people for the coffee and the networking, and they're not quite sure what to say to us because maybe they don't need us immediately. And they'll say, will you write me a proposal on that? And we leave and we spend a week writing a proposal and it goes into the ether. We never see or hear anything about it again. Again, I've learned to say, I would love to do that. And can you please share the terms of reference with me? And I will be happy to respond once I get the terms of reference. If they do happen to give the terms of reference, I have a phone call to understand those terms better. And in that moment, I make a judgment. Is this worth it?
Mm. I think that was one of the things that I was taught. John and I both went to the same school for our executive coaching certification. And it was what was kind of instilled into us is don't do proposals. You should be able to and don't sell coaching. Identify what the problem is and then identify a solution for that problem. When you've done that, you've actually created the proposal, and then it's just a matter of coming up with the terms and conditions. And I know that that's really kind of condensed, but you could spend a lot of time writing proposals, and they end up in the ether. And that time could be used someplace else instead. Sometimes people say, write me a proposal, because that's a nice way of saying, I'm not really interested. Thank you, but no thank you, but they don't want to say that.
You have to read between the lines.
Exactly.
But some places for procurement, especially say public services, have very stringent procurement, and eventually you will need to write it, but know what you're writing.
Yep.
Great advice, Dennis. Thank you.
So I know that we're right at the top of the hour. Any last words that you want to share, Linda? It's been great having you this evening. I think the conversation has been really interesting and really beneficial as well. So any last words?
Just my pleasure. I really enjoyed the conversation, and we've traveled all over and around the profession. It's been thought-provoking for me too. So thank you, and carry on coaching, everybody.
Right.
We need to change the world one coach at a time.
Excellent. Thank you again so much. Maisa?
Thank you, Linda. It was very informative, insightful. I took a lot of notes here. And it was really good to see everyone engaged as well. Thank you, and hope to see you in person soon.
Yes.
I'll be back in 3 weeks. Take care, everybody.
Right. So
thank you, Linda. You are always
thank you. Thank you.
Before everyone leaves, I wanted to share something, just a little bit of insight into some of the things that we're working on in Coaches for Good. For those of you who are career coaches, business coaches, leadership or executive coaches, I was approached by an organization that's looking at working with one of the ministries in Abu Dhabi and providing 3,000 hours of one-on-one coaching over a 3-month period. And so it's an opportunity for us, as I've been talking with them about it, it's for primarily for, they're all 1,000 of them are Emirati nationals, and they're either freshly graduated from high school or freshly graduating from university, and they're moving into the business world now, and they need to get preparation for that. And so this ministry is investing money in them to do that. So this coaching engagement is a paid engagement. It'll last for 3 months. We're looking for people who can volunteer a minimum, or not volunteer because volunteering is free. We're looking for people who can commit to a minimum of 7 hours per month, which would be 21 hours over a 3-month period, up to 150 hours. For people who are looking to get their certification, let's say they've just recently graduated from a program and they're looking to get their ACC certification, you need 100 hours of live coaching. we are giving you the opportunity, if your profile fits, that you can get those 100 hours of live coaching experience in a 3-month period, maybe even in less time than that, depending on how many hours you're willing to commit to it. But if you have a business background, you are a career coach or a business coach or an executive or leadership coach, that's what the client is looking for. They've specifically said they're not looking at coach profiles for life coaching at this point. They would prefer that the coaches speak Arabic, but that's not a requirement. And you would just, like I said, you just have to commit to delivering a minimum of 7 hours up to a maximum of 100, or a minimum of 7 hours per month, up to a maximum of 50 hours per month. If you're interested, go on to, or you could submit your coach profile to C4G. Actually, let me write it in the chat for everyone to see. Oops, not 2 O's, just 1 O there. C for G, add Coaches for Good. So C for G is what we call Coaches for Good for short. But this is our official email. If you put your a copy of your coach profile, we need your the number of hours that you'll commit to. And then just your contact details. As soon as I get more details as they're signing these contracts, we'll pull together a Zoom meeting and we'll let everyone know exactly what the hourly rate will be. We'll let them know when the start date will be and everything else. I think this is a great example of how coming together for Coaches for Good, we can create opportunities for a lot of coaches. Rather than holding things to ourselves, there's no way that I could provide 1,000 hours of coaching in a month. I need to partner with people in order to do it. And actually, this particular project, it doesn't fit my profile, but I see it as a great opportunity for our coaching community. And so that's why we want to reach out and invite you to submit your profiles for that. You can get more information also off of our website, which is coachesforgood.com. We're looking for volunteers who can help us specifically in marketing and in social media. We are coming up on our 1-year anniversary, and we've got a lot of really exciting changes that are coming up. We've got the volunteer project that we're working with the Microloan Foundation, which helps women in Malawi, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, and Malawi. Had a little brain wave crash there for a second. And so we've partnered with them in order to provide coaching as well. So that's another opportunity that we've got listed in our website. We will be looking for more collaborations and volunteers as we're coming along. So if you do run into things that you see as well that could be good, let us know and we'll communicate them out. I think for right now, that's it. Our first anniversary comes up on the 3rd of November. So we've got some special things planned there. Hope to see you all there. And again, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you all. It was really
Thank you, Dennis, and keep doing, and my side, keep doing the good work.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, John, Mirvat, everyone.
Thank
Good to
you.
see you.